Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jamila Norman of Patchwork City Farms in Atlanta, Georgia. Jamila is a first-generation daughter to Caribbean parents whose history is rooted in agriculture. After a career in environmental engineering, she founded Patchwork City Farms in 2010, which is an acre-and-a-quarter urban farm with one 30 by 96 high tunnel and 4 Caterpillar tunnels that supplies 2 farmers markets, local restaurants, and a farm stand launching this year. I reached out to Jamila in January after an Arctic blast with lows in the teens hit Atlanta and decimated 90% of her winter crops and severely impacted local winter crop availability. I wanted to see if I could offer any help or suggestions for preparing for future extreme cold weather events not normally experienced in Atlanta. But what I learned from Jamila is just how difficult it is to prepare for extreme, unpredictable cold unless adequate infrastructure like high tunnels are already in use, which are not typically needed for growing cold-hardy crops in the South. We also talk about her gardening television series that she hosts called Homegrown on Magnolia Network, which just launched its 3rd season. The series focuses on helping families in the Atlanta area transform their outdoor spaces into beautiful and functional backyard farms, and it can be streamed on HBO Max. Jamila is a warm-hearted leader and a resource for the urban farming community, and I truly enjoyed our conversation. This episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Vermont Compost Company. Since 1993, Vermont Compost Company has grown from a small local operation to a company supplying premium living soils to thousands of successful growers all over the country. Combining meticulously crafted compost with intentional sourcing of the highest quality materials and amendments, Vermont Compost Company consistently delivers organic growers the soils their businesses depend on. In addition to product consistency, growers can count on Vermont Compost to provide the technical expertise it takes to make your organic farm flourish. Visit vermontcompost.com to learn more. Why grow alone? This episode is also brought to you by Seed Time. Have you ever struggled with the timing of winter crops and planning your succession plantings? I've been playing around with a new crop planner called Seed Time that makes it so incredibly easy for home gardeners and market farmers alike to visualize when to seed, transplant, harvest, and more all year round. If you'd like to save a ton of time and avoid headaches planning and growing your crops, get your free Seed Time account with a $5 free seed coupon at seedtime.us/no-till podcast. That's seedtime.us/no-till podcast. All right, enjoy the show. Okay, so welcome to Jamila. This is the Winter Growers Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Good. Well, I first reached out to you. It was January of this year. There happened to be a very difficult and challenging weather event down in Georgia, and actually over a lot of the Northeast. But Georgia being, relatively mild for winters, this was not something that you had anticipated or experienced much. So as, someone who's growing year round, this was a bit of a, what do we do next kind of moment. And I was really curious sort of about, how do farmers, especially down in Georgia and southern, latitudes, how do they mitigate these climatic changes and events in order to supply fresh produce to your community?
Yeah. You definitely reached out. It was a very record-setting time in Georgia. I've been growing in Atlanta, Georgia for going on 14 years. And temperatures generally, they'll get down to, 30s, they'll get down to the 20s. And generally it just sort of dips and then goes back up. But this event was sustained. think it was like 10, but the wind, and it was also very windy. So the wind chill factor was like -10, and it was like sustained for like days. And so this was not weather we had experienced ever in the South. And it was across the whole state and just a lot in the Southeast. So it wasn't even just sort of like regional. So North Georgia, South Georgia, Atlanta's kind of, middle. And yeah, just on a whole, the governor declared a state of emergency. And yeah, it's nothing any of us prepared for, right? Because this is not what we expect. This is not our normal seasonal pattern. And it was just we just got hit. And so we're all just really, we're recovering from it. All the crops that we had crops in the tunnel, we had crops out in the field. Everything was covered as best we could with we had low tunnels covering, I would say, probably 50% of the growing space. And then I had one really large tunnel and four caterpillar tunnels covering other spaces. And we pretty much lost, I think, like 85-90% of our crops. And we grow through the winter and we're attending local farmers markets, everything like that. So it was a significant loss across the state. But you get to learn what makes it. You get to learn what survives. And yeah, we have to just sort of think and plan for that in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what, is really interesting for me is, farming and growing and obviously predictable winter climates. We tend to prepare for all these events, or we have, the expectation that the plants will be able to harden off going into the winter, because we have more predictable cold.
Mhm.
But then, here is the situation where it really just hit you out of the blue. And
Mhm.
how do you prepare for things like that? That was sort of my, suddenly like, I was like, oh, right. I thought it was so difficult up here in Maine, but that's a
Yeah.
significant challenge that is really difficult to prepare for. Even if you have a couple days ahead of time notice that it's coming, there's not a lot you can
Yeah.
do. I mean, you can't just suddenly erect a high tunnel over those crops. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I mean, exactly. You can't really prepare for that because this is not normal. This is not seasonal, and like all of us, we kind of knew it was coming in the sense of like a couple of days. But all you really have is what you have. Like even if you try to get a hot tunnel, you wouldn't order it fast enough, get it in fast enough, cover. So it's not something you can just pivot on a dime to adjust for something that crazy. And so with everything that we did with having all of our tunnels closed, I mean the wind chill factor I think is what really just kind of took it over the edge, because the wind just sort of came in and blew under the tunnels. And I mean in Georgia we all for the most part do unheated. We don't have any heat in our tunnels. It's just enough to keep the chill off and the plants just make it. But yeah, the only things that survived were pearly kale, purple and green, collards survived. And I mean, even those plants, they survived, but like the bigger leaves, I mean, we were like, getting ready to harvest, going to market. You definitely had to pull off the bigger leaves because they kind of got burnt and yellowed, and then had to just kind of give them a couple of weeks to kind of come back, to their full selves. Spinach and purple lettuce. All the other lettuces, we had romaines, we had a couple of different like a panise type oak leaf lettuce, a curly green. So all of the green lettuces did not make it. The purple kale, the purple lettuce that we had, I can't remember what the variety was. That one survived. So it's like, okay, purple. Um Leeks. We had leeks in the ground, so the leeks managed, and they were, yeah, the leeks were covered in low tunnels. Strawberries survived, and I just like did not have enough low tunnel fabric to cover up the strawberries. So it was just kind of like, if you make it, you make it. And yeah, strawberries are a trooper. They were like, we're an alpine crop. We're gonna hang in there. And so that's good because people love strawberries in the springtime. And so yeah, so the planning for something like that is, how do I plan next year? It's not in the moment. Um, And that's just sort of the new normal is unpredictability. We just came out of 80 degrees 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and it's going to be below freezing this evening. And so Georgia is like those crazy swings. Plants are about to bolt, plants are about to freeze, plants are about to bolt, plants are about to freeze.
And just so listeners know, we're recording this on March 12th to give you a general frame of reference that's a huge swing, and still early spring.
Yeah, it's a huge swing. Everything has blossomed in the South, which we're all, as farmers, very concerned. And we're like, this is not okay. And of course, the public is like, oh, it's so lovely. Look, the trees are, I'm like, we're going to lose. I think for the last couple of years, the state has lost like 50% of its peach crop. They've lost like significant percentages of their apples in North Georgia because things are blooming really early when it gets super warm in February. We're still due in Atlanta. Our last freeze is really not until end of April. Second to last week in April is really when, historically we'll have our last freeze. So we still got a significant time left for some freezes. And yeah, this evening's going to get down to 30 and tomorrow. So 2 days where it's going to get below 30. And it's not going to be good for those crops because, it just kills off those blooms and that means, less fruit. So yeah, everywhere's, it's the new normal. We just got to figure out, what will make it, how we adjust and that's it. But yeah, it's more planning for the future than it is in the moment.
Yeah. And your community came out, really strong and supported you through this crisis. And, I guess luckily we do have strong communities that recognize, these challenges and can support us as farmers to get through these events. What was the most surprising for you about that support?
The community came out. I shared the journey of what, usually, I mean, we experience crop loss, just, all kinds of bugs came and got it. I don't know, a flood came, just like regular things in the course of farming. And I don't share that necessarily all the time because I'm just like, it's going to be a story every day with something. But this one was just significant enough in the way where people were not going to see us at market and they were going to significant be like, Jamila is not here for the next month, 2 months, what's going on? So I was like, let me let them know what's going on. And, and then, so of course people, can we come help? Of course, everyone wants to come help on the farm. I'm like, well, we got to we got to order up more plants because not only that our farms freeze, but our greenhouses, their pipes froze, so they were down. Anything they had in the greenhouse went down. So everybody, the whole system, was affected just across the board. And then, but then people were financially just supporting. I was blown away by how many people were willing to donate, dollars and funds to just be whatever you need, however we can support you. So that was really encouraging. And then we joined forces with a couple of other organizations that, I'm on the board of to just kind of raise money for farmers in general around the state, because I'm like, hey guys, this is not just me going through this. This is literally the state of Georgia and all the farmers across the state. So that was really, really good to see that,
And how much, how much does your business depend on the winter sales? What does that look like for you?
I mean, winter sales, I would say would be a quarter of our sales. It's enough to keep our employees going, and so that they don't have to find seasonal work in the wintertime. And, it keeps your customers engaged because, the thing that I've realized over the years is when you have those breaks in sales and you kind of lose them, you got to work really hard to kind of, hey guys, get back in there for the springtime. So it's significant. And also it's not even just sort of the winter sales that were lost. It's the crops that we had growing that we were going to be bringing to market in the spring. You know what I mean? So all the broccoli, all the cauliflower, all the cabbages, and can't really replant it right now. I'm only working on 1.5 acres. So space is very, it's a little puzzle, like something occupies space, but as soon as that comes out, it's time for the next thing. So, you know, waiting 6 weeks to get more, transplants and then getting them in the ground, but you're planting them when it's cold. So not growing that fast. It's like it would be in the ground too long. And at that point, I really need to start putting in my other crops. So yeah, it's just a loss. You're just like, we won't have that crop this year, you know? And I specifically from last year, from the year before, knew that like cauliflower was a little extra sensitive to cold. And so I was like putting it in the high tunnel. Like, I know I'm going to do, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I'm going to protect you this year. And then this thing came and was like, nobody gets to make it. Okay. So yeah, but it's also kind of saying, I'm like, I might just not grow cauliflower. Like broccoli is a workhorse. But it's like, I might just have to let go of cauliflower, and cabbage, which is, whatever. We're always adjusting.
So maybe you could describe for listeners the layout of your farm, where it's located, sort of the general layout, infrastructure, those kind of details. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I operate Patchwork City Farms. We are right in the city of Atlanta, like city of Atlanta proper. Like we're about 5 to 6 minutes from downtown Atlanta, in a quadrant of Atlanta, termed Southwest Atlanta. So we're literally right in a neighborhood surrounded by single family homes. In that same community, we're also a lot of nature preserves. And my main site is an acre and a half. And then I've partnered with an organization at the adjacent nature preserve, and I'm stewarding a half acre on their site as well. So it's kind of 2 locations that I'm farming at, and they're like a minute or 2 from each other, like driving. We have one really large 30-foot by 96-foot tunnel, high tunnel. Half of the farm space is really long wooden raised beds. So they're like between 90 to 70 feet long, 1.5 feet deep, wooden raised beds. And then then we have a processing area in the middle with 2 different temperature walk-in coolers, covered processing area where we're bunching, bagging, washing. We have a couple of sinks, wash table. We have a salad green spinner, the old washing machine salad green spinner, and a big bubbler, 111-gallon tank, 110-gallon tank, greens bubbler. And then the other side of that, 2 Caterpillar tunnels, 40-foot, and they have 4 wooden raised beds in those, 40 feet long. And then outside of that, about 24 40-foot raised beds as well. And then we have sort of what we call the field on the other side of the farm. And that's probably like a 1/4 acre field. And we do a lot of field crops. We just like in ground, till it up. I'll do flowers, pumpkins, just like the things where you put it out there and, you let it do what it do. And then at the partner site, we have 2 50-foot Caterpillar tunnels. And then probably another 20 in-ground raised beds, in-ground beds as well. And those are sort of like permanent beds. So we don't like retail the whole area all the time. The only place we sort of retail on a consistent basis is the open field on the main site. And yeah, so we're really close to our markets. I mean, the farmers markets that we go to are like 10 minutes. We go to 2 farmers markets. On Saturdays, we do online sales, and people pick up on the farm on Fridays. We'll be launching an on-site farm stand this year on the farm, and do that on Fridays as well. And yeah, and when we're fully operational, we usually have 3 people working full-time at the farm. And then I kind of, step in and out as needed. And I always am there at least for Thursdays, Fridays, harvest days, and then just kind of, touching with the team as needed throughout the week.
Do you live on site or next door to any of the locations, or?
No, I live in the neighborhood, but no, these are just standalone, separate. Yeah, I live like 5 minutes from the farm. Most of the people live really close to the farm. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I always am curious if do you like that separation?
Yes, I do. I do like that
Okay,
separation.
good.
I mean, there's as much separation as there can be, because I receive all the packages at the house and this, that, and the other. City of Atlanta, because it's a city of Atlanta, they have old rules that remained on the books, kind of back from when, it was a lot of agriculture in the city. But from a development standpoint, if it doesn't have a house on it, it's an empty property. You have a whole farm operation. They've changed the rules. They've adopted farm. So it's considered vacant property, even though there's a whole farm operating on it. And so with that, with vacant property, it makes it really hard to get an address. It makes it hard to just get services because in everybody's like when I tried to get internet out there, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not in the system. Like it's just, so things like that is just kind of really hard. So right now we still can't receive packages on the farm because it's not really an address. So everything comes to my house. But what's really good is because you're in the city, people do love to just show up. They're like, oh, it's a community garden. Oh, look at this farm. And they just walk in and just walk up and they will come, just meander. And this was long before I even had the show, that kind of actually brought some more attention just in general. Like that's people see a garden in the city, they see a farm in the city, and they're just like, hey, botanical gardens, I'm going to walk through. So, yeah, so it's nice not to have my home there.
So you started the farm 14 years ago, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what were your influences growing up? Talk a little bit about your background. I'm curious. What made you want to be a farmer?
I know, right? So my family's Caribbean. My mom is from Jamaica. My dad is from Trinidad. They met each other in New York. I was born and raised in New York. And, they just were like, oh, we're tired of the city. We want to move to the country. And, Atlanta was advertising, come to Atlanta. Atlanta's, a great mecca for, people of color and just for whatever. And, you can get land and a house. So, we moved down to Georgia. And just like personally, me growing up, I was always just drawn to the outdoors, drawn to nature, just wanting to, was just my disposition. I wanted to be an environmental scientist. I wanted to join Greenpeace. I wanted to save the world. That was Jamila. And then my parents always, talked about their upbringing, their rich history of agriculture. They grew up in small rural communities in their respective countries. So they're not from the city. They're from tiny towns, and it was all agricultural and everything. My mom would say, everything we ate came from the land. We was organic before organic was a thing. And, you're right, because that's just how everybody grew. And so, hold on, I'm plugging in just so I do not lose power while we're talking. And so moving to Georgia, I personally knew that I wanted to kind of live in a way where I was like kind of living off the land, kind of like a little bit homesteady, but not totally homestead because I'm a city girl and I love the city. So and I was like, how can I live in the city but off the grid? That was like, back to mine. And so, went to school, became an engineer, worked in environmental engineering, and just saw the effect of agriculture, just kind of like on the environment, agricultural practices. Georgia is good old regular standard ag. It's not a very sort of sustainable ag environment in terms. It's the biggest industry in Georgia, but that's not their focus really as an industry. And just also seeing the effects of environmental degradation on certain communities. So I lived in Southwest Atlanta. It's historically Black community. And I just was like, there's also food disparities, there's food issues, there's health issues. I'm like, no, start a farm in the city, in the community that needs it. And it's gonna, it's gonna provide food, it's gonna bring back, biodiversity, create pollinator habitat, help clean out the air. I thought it was such a cute little idea and a simple solution to, all of the problems, right? It's going to solve all the problems. But that really was sort of, my reason for kind of starting. You know, I have a family. I was raising a family. They were in school. There's just not really good food options here. Just wanted to be part of the solution. You know, like I'm not going to complain about things. I'm not going to look to government, change stuff. What can I do? And there was just a lot of land available in this community and a lot of vacant properties in this community. So yeah, so when I started with another business partner of mine, and her family, it's kind of the same journey, but they're from Kenya. Our family came here from Kenya. So kind of like that same, origin story. Like, oh, we grew up on the land, blah, 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 came here. And her, wanted to kind of get back to that agrarian lifestyle. And we started with a lease from Atlanta Public School at a middle school. So the first farm site was property. We were leasing an acre from the school system at a working middle school, and we operated sort of half of it as our commercial operation. The other half was like community garden, community orchard, and then we had a student garden where we were working with the students after school and, having them grow their stuff. They would come to market with us. We're like, we're going to show you the whole thing. And did that for 4 years. Gentrification, all kinds of nonsense happened. We lost that lease. And then I moved on to another property with another nonprofit through an MOU. That didn't work out so well. And so I actually had a pause for about 1.5 years in farming while I was looking for land. And I was like, the only way I'm going to continue this and able to continue this is if I own the property. That takes us to the property that I'm on now that I was able to purchase in 2016 in the city of Atlanta before everybody found out that they should buy land in Atlanta. So it was a good deal and they don't exist anymore. Oh my God, it was so lucky. And I'm so thankful for it.
And what, give me just a sort of general ballpark idea of what that cost to purchase that land. What was that?
It was $18,000. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Like not a deal anyone would find right now. It was, and it's interesting because it was a Google. People are like, how did you Google? I just Googled land for sale in Atlanta. Literally, that's what I Googled. Looked at some other properties and I just knew I was like, okay, I can't take out a loan. I mean, I just couldn't take out a loan. And this has to be what I can afford. And when I tell you the heavens opened up and all kinds of things happened for this I just was like, this has to be. The IRS sent me a check. They were like, oh, we owe you some money. Just out of nowhere. So that check came in. I stopped working at the state. So I cashed out my retirement at the state, which I was like, golly, I worked for y'all for 10 years and this is all we got. I'm cashing it out. I'm buying land. And just a couple of other things. And it just was it was $15,000 cash. And then found this property and we put it on the contract really quick. And then maybe 3 or 4 days later, they started getting a lot of inquiries, but thankfully I was already under contract. And yeah, we closed the deal and oh my God. And it was 5 minutes from my house. It was already cleared. It was a big corner lot. I was like, and it had what I thought was a creek in the middle. It's not a creek. It's a drainage ditch that the city dug. And it's been the bane of my existence. But nonetheless, it is beautiful. You're like, look at this. It's so cute with a creek in the middle. So it just was idyllic. And I'm so thankful. Oh my God, I'm so thankful I had that. Lord have mercy.
Yeah. And what did it look like to start building out the farm at that point? Obviously there's a lot of work involved in setting up a farm. So
yeah, there is a lot of work. I know. And this is literally my 3rd time, right? And every time that I have built a farm, it's here's a patch of grass. Go forth and farm, And so you got to bring in electricity. You got to bring in all the infrastructure, working with USDA. So it's it's still being built, right? We've gotten to the point where, we have cooler processing, but it's crude. I mean, it's 2 shipping containers with a covering, between the 2. And that's where our processing happens underneath. We have our walk-in coolers. We got electricity, we got USDA to bring in, dig a well. We have irrigation on the main site, we have irrigation on 70%. So I got to put irrigation in on the other side, drip lines and everything like that. And then the site around the corner, we got those Caterpillar tunnels in last year, and then we're going to get irrigation put in. And so right now, we're just doing like sprinklers, stuff like that. So yeah, and I'm funding all this, personally, there are some kind of small grants in the area that we've been able to tap into. The good thing about Atlanta is that there's been a support network of nonprofits that have come in and are able to get big donations, from foundations, and they have been able to re-grant those dollars to not just nonprofit farms, but they also are invested in for-profit farms as well. And that really sort of opened it up for us to kind of get the infrastructure that we need to run our farms, which has been a lifesaver.
Yeah. And you are selling at farmers markets, online, and a couple restaurants here and there. What motivated the decision to do more retail focus?
Really COVID, right?
Yeah.
It kind of changed the game for everybody. But no, I mean, from day one, in terms of like when I started the farm, I'm an engineer, and I love data. So I was researching and reading about building a farm before I even like did this farm, right? Because like I said, I just thought this was going to be something I did in retirement. I didn't think this was going to be like my career now, and I probably would retire still farming. So I'm like, yeah, when I get older, I'm going to have a farm. I'm just going to read about it and ingest information. And so I had already kind of been researching like what other sort of production farmers are doing, where are they selling, like, what is the best opportunity for sales. And people are like, yeah, you find your local farmers markets and do some restaurant sales and things like that. COVID pushed us online, where I don't know why, as farmers, we thought we couldn't sell vegetables online, and we were just so against it. It's like, why didn't we do this earlier? But just kind of like, you just have to pivot, right? And that was sort of, we thankfully in Atlanta were able to petition the city to get local farms to be considered essential businesses so we can continue to operate. So I was able to continue to run the farm through COVID. It's 5 minutes down the street. I just leave my house, go to the farm. And then, the farmers markets were able to continue to operate. They just spaced everybody out, sanitize, wear your mask, all that stuff. And people were just so thankful for it. And then we just started doing online sales and people picking up at the farm. And we were just like, man, wish I'd have thought about this earlier. So yeah. And so that's, maintained, as a key part of my sales outlet. And restaurant and wholesale has become less and less. I just kind of keep relationships with like one or two restaurants because I like the chef, I like what they're doing, it's good, but it's not like, it's not a big percentage of the sales. Because right now, we're just trying to maximize retail opportunities.
And I would assume that your demand strips your supply. Is that correct? I mean, you probably have plenty of demand just with that.
Yeah. There is plenty of demand, and it's weird. It's cyclical. Because the winter is tough because you don't really think of Georgia as being like, ooh, cold. People don't go outside, but it dips below 50, and people are like, it's freezing, and so less people do shop during the winter. Which is crazy. And then, also the variety does get like less. So, wintertime definitely gets a little bit more challenging in terms of like, we've gotten better at growing in the winter and growing more, because of the tunnels and everything like that. And so it is like a little bit more supply than you have demand during the winter. But then the rest of the year, it's pretty robust. And it's just trying to keep up with that demand. And I'm limited. I have an acre and a half. That's it. And I have no dreams of getting any bigger. It's enough. It's a lot. And the only thing that, we aim for is just to kind of be more efficient. I know we can we can produce more out of that space. We can be more efficient with our operation. And yeah, that's kind of what we're aiming for. There's just more efficiency and, just better systems to manage our workflow, make sure we're not wearing ourselves out. I'm in my 40s, 43. My farm manager, he's 48. He's been in farming a long time, so he already has a couple of. I think guys are just harder on their bodies than women. I mean, they just can throw themselves. I'm like, just calm down. So I got a few more aches and pains. So I'm constantly trying to make sure that the farm grows in a way that we can grow with it and not wear ourselves out farming it.
You mentioned you have you have children?
I do. I have 3 boys.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How old are they, and have they expressed interest in, I guess depending on how old they are, and taking over?
Yeah. So yeah, when I started really kind of, especially like when I started the farm at the school, they were 5, 7, and 9. So yeah, they were helping me on the farm. They was at the farmer's market. I mean, we all have, our farmer market babies that, they was with us. We see people's families grow up and they are all off to college. I've just got one son left with me here at home and he's going into culinary. He's going to culinary school. So he's always been into food. So they have done their fair share of farming. And, we live in the city, right? And so pretty much kind of when they got to high school, I'm like, I'm not going to force you to like do farm stuff, right? You have your high school, city, college, city kid experience and all of that. So there's not it's not like a requirement, like y'all have to help me on the farm or anything like that. So I just, I'll let it be up to them whether, they show interest and want to come back to it. But they definitely they put in work. And if I need help with anything major, they're like, Mommy, I got you. I'll come help you out with stuff. So they're pretty cool. But yeah, they're all on their own journeys right now.
Yeah, no, that's important.
Yeah. And ages, let me see, ages 23, 21, and 19. So
all right.
They're older.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, as they continue to age, if there is a drawback to, the farm and how to assist or collaborate with you on that, especially your son who's got the culinary. Yeah.
Who's in food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you mentioned earlier about a show that you've been doing called Homegrown. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that came about and the inspiration for that and how that's going for you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses.
Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or your family's harvest, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment that you need for a harvest that you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are designed for durability and offer the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Visit rimmelgreenhouses.com to get a quote today.
If I may editorialize for a second, I own a Rimmel tunnel. I love it. We built it ourselves, and I really appreciated the quality of the tunnel as well as the customer service we received in the process. So make sure to check them out. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Since 1973, Johnny's has supported farmers and gardeners with superior seeds, tools, and information to help ensure their growing success and help feed their communities and families. The research farm is at the heart of Johnny's, where they trial thousands of varieties and tools every year. Their breeding program uniquely focuses on introducing varieties that meet the needs or solve the challenges mixed market, small farmers, and avid gardeners face. Visit johnnyseeds.com for innovative new varieties and time-tested favorites to grow this season. You can also browse their online growers library, link in the description, for a wealth of free educational resources. The employee owners at Johnny's look forward to growing with you. All right, back to the show.
Yeah. So Homegrown started off during COVID. It's funny. I got an email from a production company here in Atlanta in 2019. I can't remember. Was it February of 2019 or something like that? And they were like, hey, we are trying to do a show about, local farmer or our farms show. And we're trying to do this pitch to a network that we hear is coming out. And we found you and we would love to have you come in and just, talk to us. And it's interesting because they were like the third production company that have reached out to me in a span of maybe like 6 months trying to do something around German. But they were the only one in Atlanta. The others were like, one was in California and one was somewhere else. And they were kind of trying to go a different angle, more like reality drama, TV drama on the farm. And I'm like, what? The Atlanta farming community is one big happy family and we love each other and support each other. And they just were like, so nobody has problems with each other. I'm like, you know,
They always want the
anywho,
drama, right? Because the drama sells.
they want the drama. I'm like, well, the Earth's giving us a lot of drama. I mean, this climate change, is that drama enough? I mean, these bugs are getting on my nerves. No, we want drama. But so I could see where they were leaning. Like, I'm not interested in that. It's farming hard enough. So anyway, so yeah, they were here in Atlanta. They were like 15 minutes from my house. So I was like, okay, let me go see what they're talking about. And, went in, met with them, really cool people, just really nice. She was like, do you mind if I just kind of like do a little video? So she got a little iPhone out and, just answer some questions. They had already done a whole write-up, they'd already like written up the pitch to the show. And she was like, okay, we're going to send this off. And then we just sent off the proposal, to at that time, before it launched, Magnolia Network, she's in production. She knew that they were getting ready to launch a network and looking for content and sent it off. And then, they approved it and they were like, okay, yeah. So they funded the pilot. And now here we are getting ready to launch season 3 in April of this year. And it's just been really cool. And what I liked about the opportunity was, I guess at this point, I was already 9 years into my farming, journey. And I was already getting tons of people reaching out. Oh my God, my family's got land over here. People just, wanting help. They want direction. People, having their own gardens. Like so many people just want information on how to grow food, what to do, this, that, and the other. And in talking to them about kind of what they wanted for the show and knowing what Magnolia Network really is about, they're really about like information that people can really actually ingest, use, and have successful. It was like, okay, here's an opportunity to really share real information to kind of like show people how something is done and then really have them have information that they can take away and implement. So I was like, it was just it was an opportunity to teach on a scale that I could not do just on my own. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can get behind this project and be part of it. And that was Homegrown, and it's been really good. And it was challenging the first year running the farm, because at that time I was really the farm manager and I was like, running the farm day to day. And I just kind of had an inexperienced crew, but, I just had to, the following year, I was like, okay, I got to bring somebody in that has a lot more experience and I can feel comfortable running the farm in my absence. Because once filming happens, it just gets real busy. And I'm just not there every day to be able to check in.
So the show is available to view on HBO Max.
Yeah, it's on Discovery Plus, which is a streaming platform. It's on HBO, and they also distribute on HBO Max and, of course, Magnolia Network as well.
And I've watched a number of the episodes, and for listeners, the concept is you have a family, you go and look at their backyard, and you're basically sort of designing and installing gardens for them to grow in and produce their own food. Mm-hmm. Is that? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's it. That's the premise of the show. Yep. We go and help families create spaces to kind of grow their own food, to grow their own food. And I don't know if you started any of season 2, because season 1, it was 6 episodes. And when we filmed, we just essentially filmed the install, and the big sort of finale day was when we kind of planted everything and zhuzhed it all up, and so you kind of got to see it. And then by the time we got into season 2, we extended filming into, the install, planting, and then we came back 2 months later so you can see how the garden has grown and you kind of see more of a harvest. So it had a bigger kind of like garden, like, okay. And that way we can talk about harvesting. Because the other thing we realized in working with families on season 1 is like, people are like, So when do we harvest? Like
what do I do now?
Or like when the tomatoes are red, like when the cucumbers are green. Like people literally were like, and also they were kind of overwhelmed because I don't think people understand. Like they ask for, and we try to tell them, we're like, this is a lot of garden that you're asking for. And they're like, no, I want it. I grew up with this. I used to be with my grandparents. We're like, okay. And then it comes in and they're like, wow, this is a lot of food. When do I pick my green beans? And so it was like, okay, we need to make sure people know when to harvest things and also to help problem solve any issues as well. You know, if there's pest damage, or is it time to take this out, or can I put something else in, or, you know, things like that. So,
and then are there any lessons learned for season 3 that happened during filming? What is there any differences there?
Not too, no. I think the only thing is that we're just trying to kind of bring in more animals. So, trying to think, did we do? I think maybe we just did chickens and we brought in some animals to kind of, I think we had some goats that did like clearing, things like that. So season 3, we have some families that have like, they're bringing on animals onto their farm spaces, and that's really cool. So, you know, people love animals, love farm animals.
Yes.
Yes.
Great for bringing in viewers too, I'm sure.
Exactly. Right. Great for bringing in viewers. And, you know, and then we're just trying to get more sort of what people consider kind of authentic farm content, you know, because, you know, it can all be like raised beds in a backyard, right? You know, so which meant we traveled a little bit further outside of Atlanta, you know, to kind of get those people that can support livestock. I mean, because you need you need more space. You need way more space to be able to, you know, do livestock well. So.
Yeah. Well, I've only watched season 1 so far, but my favorite episode was the one where you actually were helping them to understand about winter production. So I thought that was very fitting because you were helping to describe the crops that could get through Georgia winters and, you know, how to protect them using low tunnels. So it was really great that you brought that content into that episode.
Yeah. You know, we definitely try to film in a way where we kind of touch on every season so people kind of get a sense for, you know, what can grow in each season. And also that, in Georgia, you can you can grow through the winter, you know, with some protection. You know, some things don't really need it. Now everybody's gonna need protection. But and so you know, so that was really good to kind of be able to have that opportunity. But yeah, we try to film because we're filming all year long. You know what I mean? Because I mean, it takes a while to like we actually, you know, we do all the work. And you know, some people's projects, you know, we had one family's project literally took us the whole year last year just because of where they were. They had a lot going on. It was a bigger space. Some projects take 3 months, some projects take 6 months. So we're really kind of like the whole time with all those families managing that. So we may slate our family for spring and then end up being like, okay, we missed that window. So we might be doing, you know, a fall garden with you or something like that. Cause that's the other thing is like, it's real. You know, we can't, because we're documenting the reality, we can't fake it.
No.
We can't, you know, I'm like, I can't buy big plants. Like we can't go to a farm and snatch up some big, you know, mature tomato plants and still like, it just doesn't work, guys. I'm like, so we just missed that. So that's the other thing is like really kind of like educating the crew and the network on sort of like how production can happen on a farm in real time. If you're trying to you know, like we're trying to capture the reality and, you know, it's like, we don't want it like, you know, just like put a tomato in today and all of a sudden, you know, you cut to a full grown tomato in 2 weeks. Like, no, we're not doing that. So keeping it real. So
no, that's so important because I mean, so often, you know, when I watch any kind of show, you know, with the eyes of a farmer, I'm like, wait a second, they just like manufactured that. And it has no basis in reality, you know, and if you know that, you know, you're going to see that. But if you don't, then you're just going to mislead people. Right. So.
hey, you're going to mislead people. And then people, you're like, hey, I tried that and it didn't work. Like, I'm like, it's my reputation. I can tell them all that. I'm like, I'm a farmer in real life. Okay. I got my reputation to like uphold, I don't want people to come back and be like, Jamila's giving me false information. But really, we've been getting a lot of great feedback. People are like, oh my God, I tried that and that was great. Or there's so much I didn't know. Or, I'm definitely going to, do things a little bit different. So, it's working in the way we wanted it to work. And that's very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great show and I hope that listeners check it out. So it's,
yes, check it out.
You're a great host too. You're fun to watch. So,
never in a million years would I or anybody like growing up, high school, college, be like, yeah, Jamila will be on TV. But it's so funny. I told people, I was like, I'm always like, no, I'm good. I'm not doing anything. And I literally was like, 2020, we all thought 2020 was just like this magical number. All the great things were going to happen. Everybody had all kinds of hopes and dreams. And I was like, 2020 is going to be my year of yes. Boy, did I say yes. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh my God, didn't think this is what that was going to be, but it's been good.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, circling back to earlier when we were talking about, the event you experienced with the weather this January and how there's not much you can do in the moment. What are you now thinking about for the future of the farm, for how you can help prepare for things like that?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about, some forced heating. I'm thinking is that something like, what does it look like to add some supplemental heat into the tunnels? And then also, like I said, the varieties that made it, you're like, okay, more of that, and really being specific about crop varieties that can handle, that kind of cold. I mean, I think that's about it. More tunnels, I don't know, because of the way I built out the rest of the farm. But yeah, I think it's more like with the tunnels that we have, how can we add some heat into that? And then also making sure we're selecting varieties of crops for the winter that can handle like that kind of freeze. I mean, I think that's the pivot right now that I've come up with.
Yeah. Yeah. And always more kale, right?
Yeah. Like I said, the curly kale did well. And so it's like, okay, I know I've grown a couple of, so like, okay, really look at more purple lettuce varieties. Spinach was like, I'll live for this.
Yes.
Spinach was all about it. And like I said, the strawberries were great. The leeks were good. And also kind of like, no, the lacinato kale did not. The rainbow chard was like, no. But probably can have certain things in earlier and probably they would have been able to withstand. So maybe the cabbages and the broccolis and things maybe can withstand if they had gone in early and maybe been a little bit bigger. So, just things like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting because, we do still, as a farming community, we haven't gotten an opportunity to kind of get our breath and come together just talk to each other and be like, all right, who made it? And then also like my carrots and stuff like that, carrots, beets. I did see what other farmers, their carrots and beets survived. And I think theirs were just in earlier and they were bigger. And so they could withstand. Mine were, not that big. So yeah. So it's just like timing, making sure I get it in the right time, picking the right varieties that can handle that cold, and thinking about some supplemental heating for those tunnels.
Yeah. Well, there's just so many things. A lot of it is experimentation and you just unfortunately have to keep trying, not everyone is going to have, the perfect solution or recommendation. A lot of it is observational.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I've seen, I saw some of the farmers were able to do low tunnels in the high tunnels. So it looked like that was successful for some people. But then, like that farm that did that, she was a little bit further south. She's like an hour and a half, 2 hours south. So a couple of degrees warmer.
Yeah.
And then my farm is also, you have microclimates even within, right? So where the main farm site is, the acre and a half collective, that is in a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's cooler than the second farm site that I have around the corner. The elevation change is significant. It's actually on what is called Bush Mountain, which is it's a kind of little mini mountain in the neighborhood that's on this 26-acre nature preserve. And so at the top there, that is usually 2-3 degrees warmer. And so that could have been, enough of a buffer probably if I had some things up there, because I've had things freeze at the main site that didn't freeze at that site, even when we have 20-something degrees, 30-something degrees, So I've noticed just between those two sites, there's enough of a temperature difference. So being like, okay, let me see, where do I put what, where?
Yeah. Yeah. And those inner layers in the tunnels, they really make a difference too. We use them, in any unheated tunnel up here in Maine. And I'll actually share with you the funny story is that my dad always likes to talk about, the layers of protection and how it brings you 1 1/2 zones further south. So, the plastic layer brings you 1 1/2 zone further south. And then the inner layer underneath that, another 1 1/2 zone. So you're 3 zones further south. So we always like to say here in Maine, you go from Maine outside the high tunnel to Georgia underneath the low tunnel. So that's our winter is your Georgian winter is what's underneath our low tunnel. So.
And what I guess weight fabric do you use inside for the low tunnel, inside the tunnel?
Yep. So the Agribond 30 or 19, kind of depending which crop it is. Like for spinach, we'll use 19 because it can take anything. But 30 for most other crops, and then multiple layers depending on how cold it gets. So that's another thing. But it's a lot of management. I mean, it's
that's what I'm like,
so much management.
I'm like the schlepping of the fabric and do you just put it in the tunnel? You put it just on or are you doing hoops as well?
We do hoops most of the times because it protects the crop from having, cosmetic damage. But spinach can take it directly on top of the crop oftentimes. So Yeah.
But the spinach was in the caterpillar tunnel. That spinach was we're good. It was fine. It's in the caterpillar tunnel, and then I have wooden raised beds in the tunnel, so it's 40 feet long wooden raised beds in the tunnel. And the reason I went to wooden raised beds, and I'm transitioning a lot of the farm to that because we're in the city, so many people want to come visit the farm, and so kind of another layer of revenue that we're gonna be kind of jumping into more is tours, which the farmers were we're not doing that. We're just going to hire somebody to manage that. Because it's I'm running the farm. Somebody else can be all peppy and happy and, lead people around. But with that, I had done tours in the past before. And it's just you just, the anxiety you have with trying to keep people on a walkway and not stepping in your beds. So I'm if we're going to be having more people coming to the farm, visiting the farm, seeing, all up in there, we need an edge, a hard edge. And it's been really good in that way. And also it just makes it easier, when we're out there and just sit on the edge of the bed and do stuff. It's been night and day in terms of the effect on my body, working out of a raised bed, then working straight out the ground. Because, we don't do a lot of machinery. If we need a BCS, we'll rent it from a local tool bank. Don't have a tractor. I'll till the field and have a friend that has a tractor who'll come out and till the one field that we have. I need to call him now to come and kind of prep that area, get all the spring beds put in. All the beds put in, and then that's it for the year. And then sometimes we don't even do that every year. Sometimes I'll just leave the beds and just sort of refresh them. And then depending on how crazy the summer got, we might retail the whole thing, but it's all handwork.
Yeah.
It's all people powered.
So if you've got tours coming, anything else you envision for the future of the farm?
Oh yeah, I'm working on a really big project right now for the vision for the farm. And it's just been really good to have purchased this property because now I can dream a lot bigger. I can invest. And so I'm really working on this 3-part robust vision for the farm where it's really gonna take it from just being a working farm to kind of like a really hands-on community engaged kind of wellness retreat, agritourism kind of space. So better farm headquarters, and then we want to build a big kind of multi-use building that where we'll have a commercial kitchen in there to do value added stuff, but also be able to host farm dinners, things like that. A multi-use space to be able to do, cooking classes. I don't know if you want to come make soap with farm product. If you want to make, different things like that. Somebody wants to do yoga classes. So we'll have that. And then we're going to have, there's a part of the farm of the site that we don't farm on. It's kind of like on the other side of the creek. And it backs up to a 14-acre, just kind of like preserve area that the city has. And on that side, we want to do some hospitality opportunities so people can come stay on the farm, experience it, through a weekend or during the week or something like that. So want to bring all that in so that we just add another layer of revenue. So it's not just vegetables and us like, being stressed every year about just, because that kind of loss, even though with the community, I mean, we raised like a little over $10,000 and that was great. It definitely doesn't account for what we lost in, crop value, and so it's just been able to like, keep employees employed, clean up the farm, kind of get things going. I was like, it's giving me a lot of opportunity to like zhuzh the farm up. Because we're not like harvesting and going to farm. Like, okay, we can kind of clean some things that we've been ignoring. So we've been knocking out like really big farm chores that just keep getting pushed off because you're so busy farming. And so that's the vision for that. And we went through zoning and took us 6 months to get our zoning approval just for the plan. I'm halfway done with all of the design work with the architects and engineers. And we're getting ready to embark on a major capital campaign to kind of build it out. So that's where we are.
Well, that sounds really exciting and so important that, you have to build in that resiliency. And obviously, it sounds like what you're planning will help the farm have more resiliency.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and it's just like in talking to other farmers, we're realizing like, it's just not enough to just grow produce and sell produce. We need something else, whether you're like, my thing, I'm going to be doing value added or I'm going to be doing, other things like it's like we need something else, to be able to like build in that resiliency and then, be able to provide, more than just a job, right? To the people that work for you, be able to, have benefits and, pay for vacations and, like, I don't know, like if we can get a retirement, pay into a retirement plan and fund for farmers, that would be, that would be great. And for the people that are working for me. So I'm just thinking, we want to do this, and, we want to be able to retire from it. And I see a lot of farmers, a lot of older farmers that I've met. And, the sad thing that is like, they're just like, can't retire from the farm because it's just the the money's just not there for them to retire. And they just have to keep working the farm and you're like, and they're older, and so yeah, thinking about that now, we got 20 more good years of farming in us.
Yeah. Well,
right. And I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to, I want us to be able to take time off. And I like definitely build in time off. I'm like, could we operate like, I'm not going to be like eking out 100% productivity, like at what cost? Like wintertime, we take time off. Like we all take up to 2 weeks at some point staggered through the winter because, we're down to one market. It's not that, we're not selling that much in the winter. So, one person, 2 people can kind of manage it. Somebody, goes take some time off, be with family. come back. And, we're doing that now. But I just want to have more.
Yeah, no, I mean, rightly so. And I'm really happy to hear of this earlier visioning that you're trying to do now, because so many farmers, they just get so caught up in the work that they don't think about these things until it's too late, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that you're being intentional about it now.
Yeah. And I mean, like the first 4 or 5 years on my farm, I was still an engineer. So I've definitely been able to sort of build it without it necessarily being the only thing that I depended on. Because I think if it was just from the beginning, only the farm, and that was my only source of income, you don't have a moment to think about anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's that consuming. So I've been able to kind of like keep reinvesting into the farm, getting, little pieces of infrastructure here and there. And then being able to get some nonprofit funding that has helped kind of like vision for the next level. So we got a significant investment from the American Heart Association that's helped with this sort of visioning for the next level, because, oh my God, building anything, my goodness, just like, getting the permitting and everything like that, you've got to get professionals to do the work and submit the plans, and you got to pay those people. Of course, you should pay those people. And that's not inexpensive work. I mean, it's a significant amount of money to spend to even put together the vision before you can even build it. So, just,
yeah,
I know, I was like, got to figure out how to make this happen, and so just got to stick to it. I'm a Taurus, so, I'm going to figure it out. I'm a bull.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah, you're like, I know, I'm kind of like, it's so funny. I know a lot of farmers who we all like have, like, if we're like birthday twins. So we all have birthdays like, I'm April 27th. Another farmer friend of mine, he's 27th. I had a guy that was working for me. He was like April 26th. Somebody was a 25th. Like, we're all like bulls, we are like earth signs. We are getting it done. So I find that really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I think it's time to jump into the lightning round. So are you ready for those questions?
I'm ready.
Good. Number 1, favorite crop to grow, cook, or eat?
Oh, okay. So, I can't pick one, but things I super love. I love growing root crops just because I feel like I'm pulling out candy out the ground every time. They're so pretty. So, carrots, radishes, turnips. My family's Caribbean, so we love okra. And just recently, last year, I started growing callaloo, which is a Caribbean spinach. It's a summer green thing, grows like a tree in the summertime. So that's been super rewarding, and I'm going to keep growing that. So that's my answer.
Yeah. And then what about to eat? What was your favorite to eat?
Eat. Oh, I love okra. I love okra. I mean, I eat everything, but I do love okra. I turn a lot of people onto okra that say they don't like okra, and I get them to eat it raw, and then they love it.
What's your favorite tool?
My favorite tool is Stirrupo. I can't remember what brand was that. Yeah, because we do a lot of this. We work with a lot of hand tools on the farm, and that one's just sort of like all purpose for weeding, for just kind of like, loosening up the top couple of inches of soil in a raised bed. I love a good stirrup hoe, and we have them in different widths, just depending on what we're doing.
What's your favorite way to relax or self-care activity? Or how do you take care of your body, heart, and mind as a farmer?
I really got into yoga heavily once I got into farming. I was like, oh my God. I also, there's a Korean spot here just outside of Atlanta. And I usually go quarterly, and I have literally given my farmers gift cards for them to go quarterly as well. And it's like a 24-hour spa with hot tubs and all kinds of, steam rooms, saunas, jade rooms, all that stuff. So that's amazing. And then, travel here and there.
Yeah, I love how you really get the self-care part and you're actually doing the actions that that take care of
I have
yourself.
to. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God, you got to. You know what I mean? Because it's like, your back, there's so much bending over, so much, lifting heavy things. And I mean, I'm in a city, so a lot of it is accessible. Like, there's a lot of benefits to being so close to, an urban. I can go to a yoga class. Like I go after the farm, I'm like running yoga close to the studio, So things like that is easy. And then, like I said, once a quarter we'll go to, the spa because it's a trek. It's like 45 minutes, but then you get to just like chill all day. I'm like, go get it, farmers.
Such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite smell and your least favorite smell on the farm?
You know what? It's hard to say what the favorite smell is, but I know what my least favorite smell is. Oh my God, anything in that tomato, potato, rotten tomato, potato, eggplant. Oh my God. I have a love-hate relationship with tomatoes. I do love when I'm like messing with tomatoes, like when you're like putting them and you're just like, oh, that tomato smell. But like, oh my God, rotten tomatoes, rotten potatoes. It's horrible. It's worse than fish emulsion.
And any a couple of your favorites?
I mean, favorites, it's so weird. I just remember smells I don't like. I mean, I don't really grow flowers, but obviously I love the smell of flowers. Good compost.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's a first.
You know what? I know what's a really good smell, and this only happens like at a certain time of the year. Like here in Atlanta, like Home Depot will do one for the chipper. So after Christmas, they'll have everybody bring their Christmas trees and they'll chip it up at the Home Depots. And then they call all the local farms and they drop off the mulch. And oh my God, you smell Christmas for months as that pile is just breaking down. Oh, and it smells so good. I love that.
That's a good one too.
Oh my God. I missed the drop off last year and I was very sad about it.
Oh no. What do you love besides farming?
Love besides farming, eating food, cooking food with friends. I love traveling. So I go to somewhere international every year and dancing. Love to dance.
What kind of dance?
All. I think anything movement. Like, I'll go out. It doesn't matter what the music is. It could be salsa. It could be drum and bass. It could be hip hop. It could be like, Afrobeat. Like I love a good body jiggle moment. Love to dance. Grew up dancing.
Makes you feel good. An inspiring farmer or land steward you'd want to have as a dinner guest, either living or deceased.
Yeah, deceased. I thought about it. I was like, George Washington Carver, he's a Black agriculturalist. And like just all the work that he's done to just, contribute to sustainable ag. It's just like, and he was a painter. He just seemed like just an all around beautiful, amazing soul and, just contributed a lot to what we're doing now. So like that would be a really, especially growing in the South, like heritage wise, my family's from the Caribbeans, but just like stewarding land in the South, and knowing his impact on Southern ag and just like sustainable ag in general. George Washington Carver.
Yeah, good one. What would you feed him?
Oh my God. Oh, ooh. What would I feed him? I don't know. Definitely something okra.
That's what I thought.
Definitely. Like, I just love okra, right? What would I feed? Lord have mercy. That was not on.
I know.
I didn't think
Trick
about
question.
that. Like, what? Whatever he wanted.
Okay, fair enough.
I have no idea.
Okay, next one. What would you be doing if you weren't farming?
I probably would still have continued in engineering in some way, but definitely pivoted. I think, but then I also think like, ooh, would I have I probably would have continued in engineering in some way. Because I do love engineering. I just didn't like what I was doing in engineering at the time. Engineering, consulting.
What's one piece of advice that you wish you had starting out, or something you wish you had done differently?
Even though I was well-read, it would have been good if I had had some hands-on experience at a production farm before I started. So everything I learned on the job, as they say. Yeah. And I mean, I just didn't really have the luxury to be able to do that. I was a mom with children, with a career already. I couldn't just go off and be like, I'm going off, for 2 years to somebody's farm. But when people come and ask me, they're starting off, I'm like, go and, go and work for some years somewhere. So you can know the cadence, you can know what's involved, you can see what a farm is like through all of the seasons, get all of the struggles, all of the, you can really know. And then also you get a sense for like systems and how those systems work or don't work or whatever. So I spent a lot of time researching and learning and asking and, and all of that and learning, which is constant. Get some experience, people.
Yes. No, I was wondering, is there a particular farm that you know of today that you would, if your younger you had the opportunity to work there, that you would like to work at? What would be a recommendation of a farm to some young farmer?
I mean, here in Atlanta, some of the kind of like farms that have been around for a while here. There's like Woodland Gardens out in Athens. They're a farm that's been around for a minute. That I'm trying to think because kind of when I started, a lot of us were started.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else was kind of a big farm at that time. Serenbe is a farm that a lot of people have kind of, they not really an incubator farm, but you can go cut your teeth as a farmer out there, definitely. Production. At the time, I think Daniel Pearson does a farm out at Oglethorpe. It's at a university, but he was a production farmer before he joined the university. So he really kind of brings that lens to it, where you can like really learn. So if you're able to go to school, but you're kind of on a production farm, that would be a good one to go to.
And hopefully maybe your farm as well.
Oh, yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Let me look up. Yeah, my farm too. Yeah, because actually I'm going to be hiring for 2 people like very soon. I'm like, I need to go ahead and put it out there. I need to bring on some more people. But yeah. Because we're year round. We go to market, and you come on the farm, you do everything.
Yeah.
Some people kind of really differentiate. They have certain people that go to market, certain people that work on the farm. I'm like, nope, everybody gets to do everything and everybody gets to learn everything. Because, a lot of the people I meet on my journey, even in employment, they have a vision to have their own space. So I'm like, well, you're going to get your hands in everything. So the whole thing, because you can't be a great farmer and then bad at the market. You can't be like, oh, I'm great. I love talking to people, but this farm work. It's got to be everything. So,
yeah. What do you feel is your gift to give on behalf of people and the land?
My gift to give. I was thinking just sort of visibility in farming as a person of color, as a woman, as a mother, as not your typical what people would consider to be a farmer, just kind of like really bringing that to the table and just, really showing people that, it is possible. It's possible. It's a lot of hard work. But that, farming is not something that only a certain group of people get to do. And traveling internationally has definitely also opened my eyes to just sort of most farm work is done by women globally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, it's a very patriarchal industry here in the States, but on a global scale, it's not. but then and also getting an opportunity to talk to farmers in other communities. We also we do respect the industry a lot more here in this country than people do in other places. So, there are pluses and minuses, but that, it's possible, and that, I am just one of many, I'm not, somebody special, or like just this oh my God, Jamila, like you're the only Black female farmer. No, I'm not. I am part of a long legacy of people that have been doing it for a long time. There's a lot of other Black farmers out there, and just sort of bringing visibility to that, and uplifting those stories and that history and that culture and that knowledge. And, I hope to just, be part of the ocean of all the people that are just, doing this great work.
Well, thank you for being here. I feel very, very honored to be able to hear what you have to share and witness the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Well, hold on. One final question.
Okay, we got more. Okay.
Last one, and it's a fitting one. How will you grow old farming?
Oh, how will I grow old farming comfortably? I cannot imagine that I wouldn't be doing it in some way. I know I want to kind of like, I definitely want to, I know I want to kind of go overseas. I want to go back to, my family's land in Jamaica. My dad's got land in Trinidad. My family's got land in Jamaica. I know I want to do stuff there. So, I wouldn't mind sort of like kind of completing this farm project and getting it to a place where it can kind of operate, get a manager and have a staff and people are running this, and I go and, start some other projects somewhere else. And just, help to just steward spaces in multiple places. It kind of rhymed. Steward spaces in multiple places. I love that.
Well, it sounds like a great way to grow old farming.
Yeah. And just go visit other farms and chill with them. Because, that's what I do when I travel anyways. I'm always like, let's go to the farmer's market. If there's a farm nearby, let's go visit a farm.
It's a curse, isn't it? Right? No, you can't go anywhere without wanting to go visit a farmer or a farm.
Yeah, how does it look in your country? What are they doing over there? It's in our blood. We love it. Love it. I can't get away from it.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Jamila, so much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a great conversation, and I look forward to the final.
Great. Well, happy spring.
Happy spring to you too.